This is episode 34 of the DerNami Gaming Podcast.
Whoop, whoop.
Today we're talking all about Anthem. We had some other things lined up, but the other two of the crew really wanted to dig into the meat of what is hot on the internet right now, and that's
In all
what.
fairness, we completed the game, so
That's
we can
true.
at least say we've played the story all the way through, and can probably at least by that point give a fair assessment of the game.
Yeah,
Just about any game if you complete it.
that game, by the way, is Anthem. And
Yes.
we have things to say, and I am joined by Arcadia Zero and Vast Empires, and I am Scorch, and we are going to be talking at length tonight about our frank impressions and critiques of Anthem, the video game. Vast Empires,
BioWare's latest creation.
you are the list master. What is our first thing?
Well, guys, we're going to break it down. We're going to go through a couple of different categories as if it were a review, although this is not an official review. We're not going to rate the game, although I think at the end we might give you our opinions of where you should put that cash. And our topics are going to be story, world building, gameplay, some of the ancillary things like voice, sound, music, and then some of the big topics that you may have seen across the internet, such as the technical issues that we've experienced as veteran PS4 players. And then we're going to give some critique and some constructive criticism to Anthem. So let's start with the story.
All right. Who wants to lead?
So, the story as a whole, I think it's a fresh idea. It's new, so I'm gonna give them points for that. It's not something that I have seen as a typical trope per se. Now there are aspects of their story that are somewhat tropish, but I'd say the story as a whole is new. I liked it. It was enjoyable for what segments we were able to watch. Anecdote for later. And I think they did a pretty balanced job of kind of taking your character as a no-name individual and actually making him something that meant something to the community of people at Fort Tarsis that you are home-based out of.
Yeah, that's a pretty
Yeah.
good way of putting it.
Are we getting spoilery? I just should have asked
Oh
that
yeah, we can
before.
totally get
Yeah,
spoilery.
I mean it's a game review, so you can
I
pretty
mean-
much consider all things are on the table.
Let's think of it this way: the people who are going to play it have played it, and the people who are not going to play it are not going to play it. So
That's true.
yeah.
If you're on the
Okay.
fence about it, just know we're going to talk all about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So one of the aspects that I was really concerned about overall, like since E3 and the marketing came out, was the and all of the information they were putting out about the narrative of the game, was their concept of our world, your story. Which was essentially how they decided to structure the storytelling aspects of the game, where Fort Tarsis, which is your base of operations in Bastion, the world that that the story takes place in, the majority of the storytelling aspects would take place in that area. And then you would leave the area to go on your quests and missions, and then you would come back, and the effects of those would be seen. The effects of the choices that you made in Fort Tarsis would be seen. And I was kind of on the fence about how that was going to work. Would we actually see? Would your choices actually make any impact in your world? How are they actually going to get story to you? What about side quests and side characters, and how are those things going to interact? And I thought that for a first run of this concept, it actually worked pretty well. The campaign story had a bunch of really amazing cinematics. They had really great dialogue between your character and the actually really large cast of people that you interact with in the game. And everyone was really different. You met a lot of people within Fort Tarsis, and even at the end of the game, they revealed some more characters for you to meet that'll hook into whatever DLC plans that they have for later in the game. Uh, so that was really interesting. I think the tension that was in that our world, your story, actually came when you played with friends. And that's because there was a lot of people to talk to. There's a lot of good conversation and relationships to build in Fort Tarsis, and it took a long time to get out of that bitch when when you, when you're playing with friends because everyone had to go and talk to somebody, and then you're all getting ready to go, and then you realize, oh no, I left one other person, I want to talk to them, and then you have to wait for them to go through the conversation tree, and then you can leave. So you would finish a mission and actually spend like 10 or 15 minutes in Fort Tarsis. And let's not even talk about customization. You just spend 10 or 15 minutes in Fort Tarsis talking to people, which was great. But if you're with people who just want to like go with the mission, it kind of brought some stuff up.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I feel like that is a bigger deal when you're actually playing with people, is that you actually want to be playing with them rather than just sitting in a party and talking with an NPC at length for like
Matchmaking.
5 minutes about a package that was delivered, you know?
Mhm.
Which is not a
But that's
bad thing as far as the story goes. It made a really
mm-mm.
believable kind of world filled with individuals that all had their own stories, which was really cool. And I know BioWare has done that before. I'm a big fan of the Mass Effect series, and that was a hallmark of the way Mass Effect worked. You built up all of these relationships with the various characters on your ship, and in spaceports and out on missions and stuff like that. And BioWare does a really good job with that. But when you have a multiplayer game and you also want to tell a story, you should probably think about telling the story during gameplay,
Mm.
because the way that you have everything all spidered out like that when everybody's at their own individual Fort Tarsis and all that, it works really well if you're by yourself. But that's not what this game is for.
Yeah. And it's just one of those balancing issues that the BioWare team had to deal with like making this big
Oops.
multiplayer game for and hooking their audience of people who are mainly single player people. Um, so like I'm okay with that though because I really enjoyed the story overall. And I hate to say it like this because it's gonna sound like I'm like downplaying the Anthem story. I heard and read that people were calling it very cliche, like Arcadia said, maybe tropey, like a sci-fi story.
There definitely were a few parts.
Maybe the bar is set kind of low because outside of like some of the better storytelling games that we received over the past couple of years, like Horizon Zero Dawn and the Spider-Man game, the
God of
Uncharted
War.
series, God
God
of
of
War. I was
War.
getting
Yep.
there. I
I
was getting
just
there.
I
We
just
didn't
got off
know
a
because you never played it, so we were just making sure you hit it.
gonna bring that up every podcast.
but but
I just got off the Metro Exodus train for Anthem, so there's that one too.
uh okay. But this was actually a really good story
Yeah.
for the world. It's a great introductory story into the world. I could say that there are places that it could have been made stronger and to make it more of an impact if they wanted to make those same like character choices. Um, and I really do think that they should have leaned into the monitor. Like he didn't feel like a threat at all.
Yeah, not really.
Yeah.
But those are like small things. Overall, I thought it was a fun campaign. It was a
Like
good
to
story.
me in this game, the monitor was like a bad guy they put on a billboard in Fort Tarsis that said, "Make sure you kill this guy if you see him," and then you just happen to see him on the final mission and you kill him and then it's done.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, you're here
his
too?
battle was super anticlimactic.
Yeah.
And they had a really good setup for him. Like the first or second time that you that you met him, and
Like
then he had
interact
like
with him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your
and then they
personal
had like some
interactions
good
were
games.
really intense, and I kind of liked it. And then they just took all the intensity away, and they're like, "Oh yeah, by the way, go kill him." I was like, oh, okay, all right,
Yep.
yeah, we can do
And
that.
then you did. Then
Yeah.
you did.
Can we take a minute to
Uh,
talk about the final boss battle at all? Is that something that we can talk
Sure.
about, or should we
I
save that
mean,
for later?
does that fit in a particular segment if we're trying to stay on topic, or maybe not?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm waiting for the list master.
uh, the Listmaster rules that we're actually going to save that when we get
Okay.
to
All right.
gameplay, unless
That is fair. That
Sorry,
is fair.
noted.
But I making the note.
Okay. Okay. What were we talking about actually? What
We were
what
talking
was
about
our post?
campaign and the story.
Okay.
I will say though, and this might be this actually trends towards gameplay. Um, so I'll save it for gameplay. But after story, it kind of naturally navigates into the world building aspect of the game, which I feel that BioWare nailed. Am I wrong?
Yeah, the world was built really well, I think.
Very big. And
Yeah.
honestly, I've never played a game. I didn't play Spider-Man, so maybe this one y'all can attest to this. I've never played a game that had the level of freedom of verticality like this one had. Like, just never played one like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And I know
think this
y'all had mentioned
one
about verticality was a big deal in Spider-Man with how you could easily transition between buildings and stuff like that effortlessly. But I didn't know. I mean, this one seemed like many stories deeper in terms of verticality than Spider-Man
Oh yeah.
even was.
yeah. As far
So
as
that
Spider-Man
honestly is my favorite
goes,
thing about the world.
as far as Spider-Man goes, I would say that it can be very vertical, but it's much more of like a narrow kind of verticality. Like
Ah,
hmm
you can do it, but you have these set rules about how you can go
uh,
vertical.
this alleyway
Well,
you
you
may
can't
go very
fly.
high in.
Yeah, that's
Well, I
true.
mean that's the thing. You can't fly as Spider-Man. You can attach to something really high and leap up to it, and then drop down from it, which was an amazing sense of verticality and speed and scale in the game. But absolutely nothing felt that I've ever played. Well, no, because not in terms of verticality, but Zone of the Enders 2
Oh
has an amazing
yeah,
sense of movement that
very similar.
I really enjoy. That I can kind of feel in Anthem, but absolutely nothing feels like Anthem, and they nailed it from the way that every single javelin has a separate feel. How heavy the Colossus feels, how light and airy the storm feels,
The
to
interceptor,
how
zippy.
zippy, double jumping and dashing, to how lush and beautiful the ruins in Bastion were,
Yeah.
to flying around everywhere, dropping down into a dark pool of water, which was I thought was really great. How they actually had the color effect in the water where you can actually like it was real. You could see the depths of the water and the way that it lightened around the edges of a pool. Um, and then you could just drop down and then seamlessly swim around into a deep chasm and then rise back up into waterfalls and just fly forever.
Yeah.
It's great.
I absolutely
I will
agree.
admit, there's there's like 2 or 3 parts that's some weird space voodoo going on where you just
Space
have this
voodoo.
water wall. As you're like in underwater, and then you just
Oh
fly
yeah,
out
yeah.
of the middle of a waterfall through some like portal that was holding the water in. There's only like 2 or 3 of those. That was kind of weird, but a non like environmentally sound, I guess, from the way the rest of the stuff worked. But yeah, it's what it is. What it is.
I can think of 2 reasons why you could justify that being in there. One,
Hit us.
because
Probably.
it's like shaper tech that they like
Sure. Yeah,
partially
that's what I say.
turned on You know, that's kind of a catch-all statement. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh
Or
yeah,
the
the Shapers, like we don't
Or the
understand it.
Shapers.
You know, that kind of thing. And then the other one was because the
Mysteries.
designer was like, this is fucking cool and it's going in here.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm totally on board with that.
Yeah. Like I
Man,
said, it's not a huge deal.
I just had a galaxy brain moment. But like there's so much meta, which we'll get to towards the end. But some other really good aspects of the world building that are outside of like the graphic fidelity and the way that it feels. There's a lot of, and I hate this word, but there's a lot of lore in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and
They
it
didn't
and
get
it
super deep into it. They alluded to a lot, and you can go read yourself on a fair amount of it, but they didn't quite. I mean, they did a pretty good job on some of the side stories with individuals explaining little tidbits and keeping it interesting enough so you'll go read some of the cards and like
Yeah.
I don't know what you want to refer to them as,
Yeah.
grimoires. I
The
don't know
lore
what you want to call them.
bits.
Yeah, the lore bits you go
in your
read
cortex.
out.
The
Yeah, the cortex.
the
I
morsel's
think that's what they called
still
it.
clinging to the bone.
Yeah. So they did a pretty good job of documenting all that stuff,
Yeah.
and quite frankly, I haven't read it all, but a lot
No.
of it's some pretty good supportive stuff to the main story.
And that's another thing. Because I didn't actually go through all of my menus, I didn't realize how much they carry on some of the storylines that you have, and this kind of uh, we'll talk about this real quick, and then we'll go hit the characters. But there were some side quests, some side conversations that you had, and some side missions. And if you so chose, you could go to your mailbox menu, which took a little bit to find because the menu system is a little layered. But
Yeah.
like some of the characters would send you uh,
Mail.
letters and mail, and so you could just
Personal.
read up what was happening. And so like there's this one character, I made the choice, and Cassian, and he left Fort Tarsis, but I said, well,
Oh,
you
he
can write
did?
me, and so he started, and he wrote me, and then Sexy Danger like was sending me,
Oh, right.
yeah, Rice was
Yeah.
sending me different messages, because I told her to help out the regulators instead of like whatever the other option was, to just go and
Huh.
take her suit back.
I see.
I
It's
told
only-
her to go take her suit back, so I'll have to read what she did for that.
Yeah. I think I did the same thing as Arcadius. Boop, boop, boop.
And so
Nice
yeah,
say.
you just got to see in areas where you didn't necessarily get to see how your fort would change. You did get to build those relationships and see more of the story from the other characters in the game.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of characters in this game.
Oh, a ton. There's one for every faction, and then there are just people out there that want to talk to you. There's like
Mhm.
the young kid at the bar that's the bartender that's really, chatty and has a whole bunch of love issues as young people do. Down
And
to
he's trying to get
like
his acting career to take off.
this old bitch that's a grammar freak and freaking hates you for saying things,
Oh man.
It runs
what was
the
her
gamut,
name? Um,
hmm The chronicler.
Yeah, the chronicler,
Madam
Madam
Chronicler.
Chronicler.
Madam Chronicler.
But they were all very interesting. This is the first time okay, so I always mention this. My first and only Bioware game until Anthem was Mass Effect Andromeda. I had absolutely no interest in romancing anything, or anyone.
But Vast, there were blue women in Mass Effect Andromeda.
Yeah, you say that like that means something to
It
me.
does
But
mean
however,
something,
this
Vast.
game,
It means
and
so
this
much.
game, they had
Anyways.
Lucky Jack, who I would have romanced the pants off if I had
Okay.
an opportunity.
All right.
And then they had the really complex and dangerous relationship between Leighton and Nadira.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that one was yeah.
Boy, did I fuck
That
that
one
one
did not
up.
end well
Oh
for
my
me.
So
gosh.
hard. I didn't. I hope I didn't, but who knows what's going to happen? Well,
Oh, yours
I really,
didn't have an ending?
No,
Mine
mine did have
totally
mine.
had an ending.
Yeah, he ended with a bullet in his head.
Mine didn't. My
Yeah,
my
that's not
characters
how mine
walked
ended.
off. My characters walked off hand in hand.
Okay,
Oh,
so
wow.
I have a different version from both of you
Really?
where
Okay, what was your version?
I got Tassin involved and let them know that there was the
Oh,
leak, and then they made him like a double agent, and their
what?
significant other walked off because they couldn't handle the pressure, and Leighton became
Oh,
like a double triple
wow.
agent for
Okay, so
Bastion.
my variant, I sort of got Tassin involved, but only to the degree to be like when she asked me, like, what's this all about? And I basically say the little catchphrase and literally like turn him on a dime right there in front of her, and she's like, oh yeah, we can't have that. But then I spun it again. I was like, yeah, but we're not like them. And she goes, you're right. We're gonna exile him. And so he gets exiled, and the next time you speak to his wife, she's like, "Well, it's all your fault. You murdered him." I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, "They found him outside the wall with a bullet through his head."
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
So when he got exiled, he got a bullet through his head.
He got finger
He got
quotes
axed.
exiled.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
since I love those two, I went ahead and made the right choice. But I really kind of hope that in a future DLC, there's more to that storyline because I found it really interesting. It was the most engaged. Well, it's not the most engaged, but it was one of the more engaging
Side stories,
side
yeah.
stories and character relationships that I built in the game. And I was
Yeah,
like, wow, this is
definitely.
really great. I can totally see if this is the kind of thing that you see in your Dragon Ages and your Mass Effect. Why people are so, and even way back in the day, like Star Wars games, why people are so
Baldur's Gate, if you want to
entranced.
get way back there.
Oh man, but who are so entranced with this gaming studio and the things that they do because like I was engaged.
Oh
I
yeah.
wanted more. I was gonna thruple till you couldn't thruple anymore if it was an option.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why I played through the first Mass Effect trilogy like 8 times. It was for all of that, you know?
Hmm.
All the
And it
well,
wasn't
I'll admit, Mass Effect had a lot more variance in its story plot turns based on your choices than this game did.
yeah,
A
absolutely.
lot
But
more,
what happened with it was that it compounded from title to title.
which is
So
crazy. That's mind blowing.
So, like, they could totally do that with Anthem, but they could just keep it in a single iteration and just keep adding content to it.
Which is one of the reasons why I hope that spoiler alert, things get better because there are such great things about this game. And the character design, the world building, the side quests, the conversations and the relationships that you start to form in the game are definitely one of them.
Oh yeah.
So I really really enjoyed that part. Um, this is a little bit of the world building, but what did you think about the character creator?
Well, I don't think that the character creator really shined in actually making your
Ah,
pilot.
right
No
back.
one gives a shit about what your pilot looks like.
That's true.
The actual creation comes from Javelin customization. And I think the extent of that has yet to be seen, seeing as how we're in early stages of like having the shop roll through and
Mhm.
having more armor options. As it stands, it's a little scant on the actual armors, but the the detail when it comes to like material and color is spot on. You know what I mean? I really like the feel of being able to just, change like whatever. It's like dyeing your hair. I want this today. Oh, I want that, a month from now. It's that kind of thing. Only I change it
Yeah.
every single mission because I, you know, am fickle and have commitment issues. But that's for
Mhm.
another
Mhm.
cast, I think.
Mhm. 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 Um, I honestly was wondering like I knew why there was one in the game. I didn't think it was going to be relevant until we were playing through the game, and you actually had the character take their faceplate, or the javelin's faceplate was up, and you could actually see them emoting with the other characters. So I appreciated that, because I was like, why am I even, there's not a lot of choice here. Why am I even choosing?
Yeah.
Um,
Would it have made a difference to you, Vast, if you could customize that pilot face? Like if you could
maybe I
just
kind
build
of
it your own.
Maybe I don't know, because since they did use the character in more cutscenes than I thought they were going to do, like the actual character face, I could see why they kept it relatively basic, so they wouldn't
Well,
have
how
to do a
many
lot of.
cutscenes did you have your character face in?
I want to say maybe four.
Yeah,
Really?
I think
I think
so.
I'm missing something.
Oh
Look, I'm
well, we can talk
estimating.
to that. We can
I'm
talk about that.
Okay, we'll get
I'm
into that. Hold on. Sorry.
yeah. Let me tell you, I am. I freely admit to saying that I could be overestimating, quibble, 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 but I can count at least two. I'm thinking maybe three or four, where your pilot actually removes the javelin faceplate or has it shifted up, and you actually see the character talking to Halleck, um, talking
Oh,
to
I
Owen.
know why. Okay, so the reason I didn't see any of that is the majority of all my cutscenes, I was wearing the Fortress of, or the Legion of Dawn outfit, and the Legion of Dawn
Uh-huh.
outfit does not have an openable faceplate
Well, you were
or an
running
extruded
Ah.
Colossus the
faceplate.
whole time, right? So
No,
you're
but
like
even still,
turtled in a hole.
even on the standard Colossus gear, you'll see the little helmet visor come down. All the Legion of Dawn gear does not have movable face pieces. And so as a
Ah.
result, in the cutscenes, you're literally just talking to him through your helmet. You're not actually you don't have. I didn't realize that. I kind of want to go back and play that now so I can see that actually animate.
Well, they
But
put in
yeah,
an option so that you could make a new pilot and run through the story again, I think. I know that
Yeah,
you can
that's true.
have a new pilot.
well, I guess that makes more sense then, because it wasn't okay. All of my cutscenes then were talked through a helmet in a more impersonal fashion because I ran Legion of Dawn all the time, so that
And
explains why.
and this is why you need DerNami Gaming, breaking down the
Yeah,
games, because you learn things, even from each
yeah,
other. You see what we're doing here?
Yeah?
yeah.
Magic.
I completely
Friendship.
thought that picking a face was 100% useless because you never saw it ever.
Oh, you definitely saw it.
Okay, well, shame on me for running the same torso for the whole campaign and not seeing my lovely face.
So what's next on our talkathon, Bast?
We can shift over to gameplay. All of I think the initial topics, story, world building, and gameplay, they kind of all fold in together to give you the big picture view of Anthem and what's there, what BioWare tried to accomplish.
Hmm.
But I think once you get to gameplay and the mechanics and the activities is where he first starts to see some of it, some of the unraveling.
Okay.
Um, so
Yeah.
let's talk about the mechanics.
All right.
Without unraveling. We'll speak to it without the unraveling parts.
Hmm.
Well,
Yet.
That's probably a spoiler, but
the
Yeah.
mechanics
Oh, it is.
the mechanics definitely change depending on what javelin you're running. So my version of the mechanics is almost entirely built around storm gameplay, which was what I played, and it's a completely different mechanical feel than, say, the Colossus, which is what Arcadius ran the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And my gameplay definitely felt really like floaty and almost nonchalant in the ability to like float around and shoot fireballs down to the plebs on the ground. I thought that was great. You know what I mean? But Arcadius was very in your face, shield bashing everything.
Gonging people with the shield.
Just
It's a good sound. A nice hefty metallic bang when you smack an enemy and run straight through him with that thing.
yeah. And Vast, you switched it up every once in a while, right? You were interceptor and you were also ranger for a while.
Yeah, and those are the two classes I didn't expect to enjoy the Ranger as much as I did. It is definitely the all-rounder of the team, but it felt really good to play, very solid.
Really?
Damage,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
It's
damage
funny
builder.
because almost every review I've read online from other naysayers on the internet absolutely shat all over the Ranger class.
I
Just
liked
dubbed it an
What?
ranger.
utterly useless class with incompatible boost skills that don't help the overall team as much as they claimed it should.
Okay, so here's the thing. I was going to get into that later. When
Do
we
it
actually
now.
talked about.
I
Uh,
mean, we
uh,
can.
well, we can, but it's
It's part of the
logic and order and
mechanics.
lists.
It's part of the
Logic and
mechanics.
order and lists. Um, but so okay, I don't think that speaks to the ranger. I think
As
that
to how
speaks
someone
to
uses the Ranger.
no. I think it speaks to how this is a cooperative game, but there's not real co-op. And this is something that I was going to say for later, but the way that the missions are structured, you don't really have what, and this is all opinion, of course, but what I consider to be coordinated cooperative gameplay. Um, you don't really need to work together at
It's
like
not
the
forced
low to
coordination.
Yeah.
yeah, you're just in the same room shooting at stuff. So at the and that's at the low tier to easy to hard. Um, you can feel that BioWare wants you to work together because there are cooperative gameplay elements. The combo system with the
Mhm.
primers and detonators,
Mhm.
and then the support system for Javelin. But here's the thing, and I actually asked Scorch about this. No one actually uses the support system in the game in the way I think they're meant to be used. And I say that because I think they're meant to be stacked. Um, and I was asking Scorch, like, I
Rather
was
than the
playing.
singulars that happen, like when a combo happens, then it's done, and then you have to like go like start up another one elsewhere.
Well, as far as
Yes,
Is that
support
what you mean
stuff
by stacked?
goes, are we talking about just strictly support skills or
I'm
what?
talking. I'm talking strictly. So look, I'm breaking down the cooperative elements of the game into two categories. Like this is me looking at the game. This is how I see BioWare wanting us to cooperate in our gameplay using the combo system one and using the support systems that each javelin has.
Okay.
So with the storm, you have what, the wind wall and the muster point,
No,
like bubble.
you got wind wall and quickening field are the two
I'm
that
sorry,
you
Yeah.
quickening
have.
field.
Yeah.
Yep. And then for the ranger, you have the muster point, which increases damage, and then you have like the dome that wards damage. I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
The
For
bulwark shield.
thank you,
Yeah.
bulwark shield. For the interceptor, you have um, the mark, and you have the like rally cry, which removes status effects.
Yeah.
And then for
hmm
the Colossus,
The
Arcade,
shout
help
for
me out here.
drawing aggro from enemies,
Mhm.
you can,
Mhm.
which is totally useless because you only have so much armor, and if everyone shoots at you, you're dead anyways. And then the other one is the support bubble. He can throw out and give everyone a short duration of support shield.
Okay. And so those items I feel don't do enough impact on their own to warrant you using them. Plus the battlefield is so busy and open that like say as an interceptor I would when I would remember to mark somebody and I would say I've marked this enemy. It didn't really matter unless there were only one or two enemies on the field because everyone has their own priorities on the target or excuse me on the field. So I think the best way to get the most value out of those things is to stack them. So you would have a ranger who has the muster point, which increases the damage that's done inside of it. You would have the storm put out a wind wall in front of your ground units, and you would do extra. You would have the colossus do shields, and and everyone would lay on like the group or the target to get your combo up. But I have played with a couple of different groups, all of them pretty tightly focused, or friends and gamers, and none of us had made use of that system.
Yeah, I know I haven't.
And I even asked you about it.
Yeah,
I was like, do you use your win wall? And what did you say to me?
almost never.
Exactly. And so I don't think that's an indictment on like anyone's play style. I'm just saying that those elements aren't strong
Effective
enough.
on their own. Yeah.
Well,
They're not effective enough on their own. They're not strong enough. They don't make a real impact at hard, or maybe even like the first Grandmaster level. And so I think that's another thing that just takes away from the cooperative elements that are in the game for us to use.
I have a valid reason for not using those support skills. If you'd like to hear them.
Go ahead and give me your excuses.
This is my logic behind this, Listmaster. It's that when you are running a DPS class like Storm, your job is to lay down as much damage as possible as fast as possible. And if you're running something like Windwall and you don't have it buffed with any kind of perk or anything like that, it's gonna do diddly shit against the damage incoming to all your team. And you can't put it in front of you, it's only deployable on the ground, which makes it absolutely useless to the Storm.
Yeah.
And the only real way that you could use a wind wall is if you actually buffed the support skill, which is taking away DPS damage. And that kind of negates the usability of the Storm in a way. I mean, you can still set up combos, but that like overhead view, the ability to get like the sniper in the background because you're higher up than everybody else, is a big deal. And when the shields recharge as fast as they do in Anthem, you don't have the ability to skimp on DPS. And as far as the quickening field goes, if I deploy it where I'm at, it's not nearly large enough to help anybody else. It's like way up high in the sky.
I also have to admit the few times I've seen you deploy it, if you deploy it in front of an elite class, in one magazine volley, he's already destroyed that shield. It's not very strong.
No, it's not. Not at all.
And I found myself like putting, like as the ranger, putting down like a dome if I'm about to heal somebody, but at an upper level or with a lot of enemies, that thing goes down like that. So it wasn't even.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't really.
It buys
useful.
you like a second and a half to just start the basically. So when it breaks and they're hitting you, you're on the final stretch of the heal, so that way you can at least get them up.
Yeah, and then with the muster point, which the only real reason I've been using it is because it's the highest level support skill that I have of the two, which is something that we'll just get to that later. I would just float in the air, use the skill on myself right when I'm about to ult to give my ult more damage. To give my ult 25% more damage.
So there we go.
Those numbers looked good.
We turned a skill that's supposed to be used with a party member into a selfish solo skill.
Well, Vast hit it earlier. Like, the game is set up so that you can be cooperative, but really
you don't have to be. Yeah.
All it really boils down to when you're playing on the difficulties getting through the story, at least, is that you're all doing your own thing together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're stronger together. Look at us getting all into the meta. I will also say that I can see the support classes as being like almost a nod to the other, maybe even the smaller subsect of gamers who like to support, because there is that class of people who do like to support in games.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And there's not a healer type in this game, so you have these different skills.
I literally played with another Colossus who had the area shock thing and the flamethrower, and he just ran around and shocked and flamed people. He primed up and down the mountainside. That's all he did. He just ran through people and priming like nobody's business, and that's all he did. And everyone was comboing like crazy off of him, and I guess that's where he got off on. He's like, "Oh yeah, I made them combos." So, yeah, it's exactly to your point. It doesn't matter what class you're playing. You can all classes have primers and detonators, so you can play it however you want.
Yeah.
And I think that comes down to maybe this is moving into the activities, but I think that's where the lack of variation in your actual gameplay, the minute to minute things that you do within a mission or a free play encounter isn't varied. And so those support skills that seem really interesting, and even in this little conversation, he's like, you can make a play with them. You can have a little bit of strategy. You can use them as oh shit buttons if you need to. But the actual minute-to-minute gameplay doesn't necessitate them.
Yeah,
So
that's
they
true.
need to be, I don't know, buffed or rethought, or have some more added, or maybe some different gameplay would actually give you the impetus to use those skills in the manner which I'm sure BioWare wants us to use them.
Well, those skills would be great, but the deal is they have a deployment time, and when you really need them, you're already dead.
Yeah, that is also true.
Like, I
Oh my
cannot tell
gosh.
you, I cannot tell you how many times where I start an engagement and get insta-downed by something. I would not
I
even
think
have a
that's honestly a
chance.
glitch with just the storm, because I actually played the storm one bout, and I had that happen. I don't see anything fly in from the edge of the screen, and then I'm down. There
Yeah.
I am on the ground. And it's like,
Yep.
okay, no other suit does this, so I'm not sure where it's coming from. Maybe it's just our unawareness of it being shot straight behind us, but it's happened too many times for it to be coincidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Um. So let's talk about those actual gameplay activities really quick
Okay.
in the
So,
As in the
campaign and
different
the
modes?
missions.
Okay.
as far as the gameplay activities go, they're pretty well used in the gaming world. You've got go out and kill stuff missions. You've got we have to find pieces of these things and put them back
Mm-hmm.
together bits of missions. We have you have to collect information for the NPC back in Fort Tarsis missions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the game has the ability to string a whole bunch of them together to actually form a mission. And you can put them together in really kind of any combination, and uh, it kind of feels like once you've played one of them, you played all of them, kind of thing. Uh, which I'm not gonna gripe about that a whole huge amount because really, what else are you gonna do in a video game? You can't have an objective where you like sit down on a chair and contemplate life for 30 minutes. That's not fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you gotta go smash
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, I'm going to take exception to that, and I'm going to break it down even further because this is how I looked at the mission structure, or the mission types. Press X, press
Uh-huh.
X, and bring something to somewhere, or fly and bring something to somewhere, or stand there while your friends go and kill everything because you are in the center because you're Mrs. Objective. Those are the only two like the things. I guess what I'm saying is I had a lot of fun playing it. I would have liked a little bit more variation in the actual activities that the game wanted you to do.
Yeah, that's
That's
fair.
fair.
So,
I
that being
Oh, go
said, do
ahead.
you have like a suggestion for what like a way that they could add something that is not press X or press X over there or stand in green circle?
I do. I was gonna like lay that down when we get to the constructive part of the criticism.
All right,
Okay.
hold off.
I mean, I guess I could say that. When you first the first mission that you have after the Heart of Rage intro, when you and Owen are talking and you're going to, fix the Shaper relic,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
there's a scene or there's a part where you're flying and you have to avoid some like light beams that are coming down a rail towards you.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's the only time that you did that in a
That's
flying game.
That's true, but
That's
that was
true.
to teach you the mechanics of movement in the air.
Yes.
That's its 100% its objective was to teach you you can move the stick around and you can
And do these things.
Yeah, that's it.
But I kind of admit
But-
you're kind of right that you should have had more of that interaction since that was a capability.
Yeah, that was a capability in the game. In the same way that in that mission was introduce you to other things that you could do, that mission introduced you to pressing X and picking up a thing and taking it to the thing and pressing X again, and then it introduced you to flying to catch the echo and then bring it back to the thing. In that mission, and then in that same mission, you had a stand there and wait for waves come and get you mission or activity. So like you were introduced to all of those things. I expected to see that flight mechanic occur one more time at least in what we were doing, but it never came back. Never.
That's true.
In a game about flying, you had no like aerial acrobatic things that you needed to do. Like what? I would have even been okay with like a time trial, get here fast.
Oh my
through
god.
hoops
No,
kind
absolutely
of thing.
not. Would put the game down immediately.
No, I know that's why they didn't do it because not a lot of people would have been thrilled with it. But I needed something else than just those three things in my javelin to test me in my flying skills. One of the reasons why I was dying so much as the interceptor is because I was trying to make fun for myself.
And just zip away in a flying fashion. Oh no, I've been shot
Yes.
by 1,000 enemies.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can totally understand that. Absolutely.
And it's because the feeling of flight was so much fun in this game. They nailed it so hard, and I was never tested with it. Like
Yeah.
the biggest test that you have for yourself is to see how long you can make yourself fly,
Yeah.
and that's not even it's not
And if
even
you played Storm, you
incorporated
just
in the
hovered
game.
forever.
Yeah, basically, but it's not even incorporated in the game. It's just something that you did in free play.
Yeah.
Can I fly for, across how many sections of the map? How many times can I duck away and get, a waterfall or drop into a pool of water and then fly out somewhere else,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was fun. But how is that not in part of like a mission? Like part of a mission?
Like fly as long as you can.
Just something different.
Like
And
you
I
go
think it
out.
kind of
You go out
That was
with
fly
Owen.
mechanic based. Yeah.
You go out with
I honestly
Owen.
thought there was going to be a training mission with Owen to teach
Oh,
him
yeah.
how to use
That's
the
what I was
suit. You were
about to
gonna do
say.
a bunch of stuff, and
Yeah.
then he ended up just being a pansy and out of his own spiteful, childish rage turned on you. And
Okay. Have we
then
talked
he
about
became the
story
nice-
yet?
Yeah, I
if
guess
we
we
can
could.
go,
Oh my god, yeah.
we can double back.
Oh my gosh.
Well, do we have anything else to say about mechanics?
Yeah, I opened up
Oh.
a can of worms on that one.
Yeah.
well, let's
I think I'm
let's
done for mechanics.
Because story, boy.
Well, no. There's still more things because we haven't even touched strongholds, the
Okay.
monitor battle,
Oh yeah.
shooting, the AI, the game AI. There's a couple of things that we really need to hit. So
Okay.
let's hit strongholds real quick because outside of the main campaign and the free play, there are the strongholds, which are your longer, what,
it's
10 to
more
20-minute
in-game
encounters.
material. It's more like late game stuff. It's not there. It's not going to influence the story one way or another if you play a stronghold. It's purely there to play as a group, get loot,
They're the
provide a
loot
little bit of a
machines.
harder experience than
Yeah.
what is out there generally.
If you
And
want a challenge.
yeah, if you've played Destiny, I would say that it's a little bit longer and a little bit more difficult than a strike, but I would not say it requires the same amount of coordination as a raid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Less than a raid, more than a strike.
Yeah,
agreed.
it's in between. And really, there's not a whole lot to say about strongholds. I mean, you press X, and then bring the thing over and press X again. You stand in
Mhm.
the green circle for a little while, and then there's a big
Mhm.
bad boss man at the end that you shoot a whole bunch of holes into and then leave.
Or bug.
Or bug.
Mhm. or or a bug that thinks it's a man.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that too.
That man. That was one of those things I'm like, we also need some enemy variation because you have humans, you have bugs, and you have bugs that think that they're humans.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretty much that sums it up.
Although, very excitingly, once you get to the end of the game, a new future enemy type is possibly introduced,
The
which I'm really interested and
Urgoth.
curious about. I'm really excited. Those are the
They're
things that General
totally socking
Tarsus
them away for
fought.
DLC.
Dude, they're
Totally socking them
tiny.
away for DLC.
They're tiny ash titans. That's what they are.
Yeah,
Don't
They're
tell me
honestly,
that.
Ash
absolutely
Titans are more
tiny
like
Ash
elite
Titans.
Urgoth.
Yeah, I guess you could think
No,
of it
don't
that
tell
way.
that to
Like
me.
wild, giant, overgrown Urgoth. So,
Maybe they're Urgoth's mothers.
ew, gross.
You're welcome.
I'm
You're
gonna
welcome for that image.
say,
So,
nah, man. Okay.
I want to think about enemy types in a different way than
Okay.
than what you explained. The way that I think of it is, or an alternative way to think of it is, you have like fauna. You have a natural non-fauna threat, and then you have an invading threat.
Okay.
And those are the three aspects that make a world more compelling. Is that it's the fauna would be part of the world building. You've got the
Something
natural,
established.
yeah, you've got the natural threat, which gives you a reason to go out there and kill things. And then you have a story-driven invading threat that makes you want to complete story and make it a better place, like clean up the world. You know what I mean?
Okay. So
Hmm.
in that scenario, you have the fauna as the really kind of awesome creatures that are running around the world, and then the big monster types like the Ursix and the Titans, and
Hmm.
then you have the Dominion. Are you saying as your threat?
Yeah, that's the invasion threat kind of thing.
But technically,
Okay.
you have two invasion threats because the Urgoth will come later, allegedly, in a DLC, probably.
Maybe future update,
So you're
possibly.
just trading one
Hopefully.
invading threat for another invading threat.
But that's kind of the nature of these kind of stories. Something has to come from outside to change the status quo of your world.
Yeah.
That's the nature of the hero's journey.
Yeah,
That classic storytelling trope or pathway.
yeah.
So what was the third one though, Scorch?
You've got the natural threat that isn't fauna, so that would be like the Scar. They are
Okay.
naturally occurring, and they present more of a coordinated threat than the fauna do, but they are not part of a huge overarching story like an invading threat would be.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
The way I
does.
describe it?
And yeah, no, that it makes perfect sense, and it falls in line with what we see in other looter shooter games that we've seen in the past. I think I think in my mind, there wasn't as much variation in the enemy types for those outside invaders and the naturally incurring the Scar versus the Dominion and um the outlaws, not the bandits, that's Borderlands.
Yeah, no, you got it. Outlaws.
The outlaws. Um and yeah, I think I could have seen some like I would have liked to seen some like visual differentiation between those things instead of just like, well, his suit is black with a yellow stripe and that suit is just black with like purple, you know?
Yeah, that guy has a green visor, and that guy has a gray jumpsuit. That kind of thing.
And I think their elites were a little different.
I mean, y'all can talk to that better than I can, because they were just ants on the ground to me.
You Storm.
I can actually see what they look like since I bashed them in their face.
I mean, I can see their bullets a lot as they whiz into my shield and then sometimes insta-kill me. But, you know, other than that, I have no idea what they look like.
I will also say that, and I said this, you know, when we did the demo, that my biggest concern was the amount of content that was actually going to be released at launch versus what they're going to have at their DLC. I don't think this game launched with enough strongholds in the same way that I didn't think that Destiny launched with enough strikes.
Agreed.
Yeah.
That was my fear too. Once I got into the game, I was like, oh no, we flew through a majority of the game already. Like, we have experienced in the demo a ginormous, at least more than 50% of this world, and that was kind of annoying. But there was still a ton to explore, don't get me wrong. But a ginormous amount was already catered to us.
So we
Took away
saw
the pizzazz.
So we saw a lot. We didn't see a lot of the campaign, and we didn't see a lot of the like Fort Tarsus like changing over time aspect of the game in the demo. But we did get one out of the three, count them, three strongholds that were released at launch.
All right. I think we need to revise that, because truly there are only two strongholds. One is playing the last mission again, and it was a piece of shit, and I'm never playing it again.
So
you just gotta battle Thick Boy again.
Yeah, well, Thick Boy.
A thicker boy at the end.
So yeah, like that was what I was going to go with. That you have one stronghold unlocked, Tyrant Mine, which is actually a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
A really interesting change of environments. Like that,
yeah.
To me, that might
beautiful.
actually be the best one.
It was gorgeous.
It really is. And then you have the Temple of the Scar, which wasn't bad at all. It just doesn't have the same type of variation, like level variation, that the Tyrant Mines does. But it does have an interesting boss battle at the end. And then you have what was the last one called?
The Heart of Rage.
The Heart of Rage.
Duh, Nick.
The one you're trying to forget.
Vast Empires. Hello, Megan. They have the Heart of Rage at the end, which is... They have the last... That was great. That was great, Squish. That's great.
Thank you.
They have the final mission that you play again, and it is... The first time you run it, it was fun. The second time you run it, you're like, I don't want to be here anymore.
You're annoyed the whole time.
Well, it's okay. Like, there are some portions that are kind of fun in some ways, but the thing that absolutely ruins that mission and that stronghold for me is the mid boss. The elite ancient ash titan that is the mid boss that you fight in the big dead Roman arena.
Yeah.
That can one-shot you with a slow orb that is really hard to judge depth on, that tracks you everywhere.
Right, it'll still burn you.
Oh yeah.
And even if you're like 6 feet away from the wall that it crashes against, the blast radius will still one-shot you.
Yeah. It's happened to all of us. It's
Mhm.
crept around a corner and gotten me as a storm.
I'm gonna get you.
The biggest
I feel
part I had, the worst part about that was that orb. That I had such a hard time judging depth because it was not fast enough to where you could time it very well. It was very
Because then
dependent
it would
on
just turn.
yeah,
Even if you dodged it, it just goes wall,
yeah.
makes a 90-degree turn, and still goes after you.
And then if you attempted a turn, it was slow enough that it could just change direction and still get you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Man, those Titan. So that battle, whatever. Ugh. But
Yeah.
the mission where you're fighting 3 of the Ash Titans.
Yeah.
That's painful. That's
That was
tedious right
miserable
there.
too because you had like multiple of the slow orbs, then
3
the
sets of
fire.
orbs,
It's
rings,
just like
power rings, the waves.
like
Oh,
get me
3
out of
sets of
here.
waves.
You're just drowning. Yeah, you're just drowning the whole time.
I felt sorry for you
Praying
guys, and
that
I
all
was a
3 of you could
storm.
kill. Yeah, you're just praying that everyone combined can just kill one of them to lessen the load
Yeah.
that is getting orbed to death.
I will say that after talking to Prospero, though, I was half expecting somewhere in this game to see a Titan 3 Titans that had been smashed together, so they'd have
Oh
maybe
yeah.
6 legs and 3
Honestly,
arms.
I think that's going to be an event.
You
I
think so?
honestly think they're
Oh.
They're
holding
gonna
that one
have
off to be a special event.
differential Ash Titan types?
Yep, they're gonna be like,
Like-
all right, this is the event. A one-time enemy has shown up, the 3-headed Ash Titan from Prospero's story. They're gonna activate a little blurb from him.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then he'll be like, oh, the thing that I talked to you about in my Javelin days, it's back. It's out
Yeah.
there right now.
We found it.
I
It's
hope
in
so.
Bastion. Go to
Yeah.
this place.
It's gonna stomp us out.
Yeah.
Bring the thunder and the
Yeah.
lightning.
So,
I hope
yeah.
so. That would
That'd be
I
actually
mean,
be
cool.
if they were
interesting.
smart, they would do that. But again, I can't attest to it. But for me, that
Ooh.
would seem like the most logical thing.
Triple Titan with 6 arms. Oh my god.
Orbs everywhere.
All right, let's really quickly, before we circle back to the story, let's really quickly talk about the AI in the game.
Okay.
I am not the most experienced. Well, I guess after spending time with you guys and being corrupted all the way to the soul.
Hey,
I am now-
hey, wow.
I guess I am a shooter veteran. I guess I can consider myself a shooter veteran. But I don't think that the AI was that
I agree with you. You can
as
finish that
smart.
sentence.
It wasn't super smart. It was charge out and shoot. It was.
Or it knows you're around this object, run around the object to get to you, and then shoot.
Yeah. I mean.
It's not. The problem is that the enemies were not diversified enough in their attacks. They held one gun, they fired that one gun, and that was it. It's not like in some of the others where they had an option to either chuck a grenade, use this gun type, or switch and use a different gun type. They didn't have that level of
Yeah.
sophistication.
And there wasn't a kind of cohesion like you saw. I'm going to bring up Halo in this instance. There wasn't a cohesion in games like Halo where one enemy type being present affected another enemy type. Like in Halo,
Yeah.
if you had grunts running around and you also had an elite,
An
the
elite
elite
captain?
would
Yeah.
order around the grunts. And if the elite died, the grunts would go insane and try and suicide bomb you.
Or just kind of run around aimlessly and not try to attack you anymore.
Yeah.
But if the elite stayed alive, by God, they were going to kill you.
And oh my god, if you ran across an elite with a full pack of grunts that all had fuel rod cannons, you were fuddy duddy,
God.
all right? You were toast.
Oh my God.
You were green ectoplasm on the wall.
Or the worst part is that they could just get plasma pistols, but if they all had their MLB baseball arms tuned and ready to go, they would stick you in the left eyeball from 500 yards away in perfect arc around a corner
Yep.
in a snowstorm.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, nothing quite stacks to that level.
And it's not to say that you won't die.
Oh, you'll totally die.
Oh, you can
You'll
totally get
die.
Through
Yeah.
either over projecting yourself or complete fucking one-shot glitch. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Sometimes the enemies would just disappear off the battlefield.
That kind of
Um,
gets into technical difficulties. We'll get into that.
That's
oh,
like 90% of every battle I've ever been in Anthem. Is that bad guys would just disappear.
I would say the tail end of them, yeah. Like if you complete the little objective, rather than being able to kill off the last 2 or 3 guys, they kind of just run off into a corner and
Yeah.
fizzle out.
Well, the objective
which
changes to complete the objective. All right, you've completed the objective, mop up the area. And you can't ever actually finish the mop up of the area because the
Before the
people
next
disappear.
objective.
Yeah,
Yeah.
after a
Well,
certain time
yeah.
period, that's what I was getting at, guys. I'm sorry not to spoil some of the technical difficulties, but like when you're finishing mopping up, if you I guess there's some kind of internal timer after a certain amount of time, the last one or two enemies will just turn around and run away and disappear around the corner if they
Yeah, and
make
then
it.
you're sitting there like,
Not
what the
even
hell?
around the corner. They'll like run 10 feet directly away from you, and then you can see them dissolve into nothing.
Mm-hmm. They became one with the landscape. They are now a bush.
Yeah. Yeah,
All
that's a little disappointing.
right. I think we may want to move on. Is that correct?
Oh, yes,
Yes,
please.
we can move on. There's so much to cover and talk about.
We're
Um,
behind a little.
Voices, sound, music.
All right.
I liked the music. It kept you feeling, I guess, invigorated for the battle type thing. You know, it kept you pumping and
Mhm.
going. But the problem is that there was only like a few different songs that ever played, whether you're in an enemy encounter, in the open world, or in Fort Tarsis. There's only like, yeah, like 2 or 3 for each of those.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't call it very widely varied. And it might just because we're being spoiled by games that get, orchestrated by people like Martin O'Donnell and stuff that make
Mhm.
masterpieces of video game audio work.
Yeah.
But I mean, I enjoyed the music that it had. I mean, it was fitting for the scenarios and the life of the game, the lifeblood of the game, as you would call it. But again, when you're doing repetitive tasks and you also have the same repetitive music, it just kind of makes it feel a little more
Repetitive.
boorish. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
here's Vess. Go ahead. Go
I was
ahead.
gonna say that's just one of the themes that we have about Anthem, which is just give us more.
Yeah.
The music was great. Just give us more. All right, go ahead.
Mhm.
So what I would say about the music is that it's good. It sounds pretty good. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to be absent-mindedly humming it to myself like I sometimes do with Mario. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
nearly as iconic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that. What about the voice acting? There's in the just general community, there's like a back and forth about this. I thought the voice acting was really good. Some good takes, I guess, overall. And I really enjoyed how varied it was because it wasn't just
Yeah.
your voice and the people that you meet. They also had, conversations going on in the background, and then they had the amazing 3 radio shows
Yeah.
that you can listen to in Fort Tarsis: Detective Hops, Crimson Lancer, and the Dawn Guard.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean unlike some video games, it wasn't samey sounding. If that's the right
Yeah.
way you can praise that. There wasn't just like, oh yeah, this one voice actor, tried a couple different inflections and a couple different shoots and voiced like 8 or 9 different village people. Like it didn't
Yeah,
work like that.
Bethesda does that all the time.
Yeah, so it was actually something that each character had enough tone and enough difference in the voice to actually be unique, and I think that lends itself to better character creation and storytelling for the BioWare games.
Yeah. And
But
please,
Scorch, you had to accept. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I think we're leading into the same point here, and it's that BioWare, please explain to me what the hell is going on with Yarrow. What the
Maybe it's
absolute
age.
shit were you thinking of when you wanted this voice actor to talk like an inebriated Russian guy. And,
Who
like,
lost a bet?
and not even a good, like, in a good Russian accent or anything like that. That being said, you don't really have to have a defined accent in a place that is not Earth. You know what I mean? You
Hmm.
can create an accent for whatever kind of person you want, and that's fine. But his affect was so grating to me and so nonsensical to me that it put me off of the entire character. It put me off of his, like, any of the plot threads that went through him.
Really?
It
That bad, huh?
it put me off of any kind of his intentions with the story wall or anything like that.
Wow.
It put me off of, like, me even wanting to deal with the outlaws. It didn't.
That's
Really?
funny. I didn't
Yeah,
realize it was
like,
that bad.
I
Man, they really rubbed you sideways.
anytime I had to talk to Yarrow, I didn't want to, but I knew that
Just
you guys
cringing the
were,
whole
and we
time.
had to continue the story, so I talked to him. But it put me
Didn't
off.
realize you were forcing
I
yourself.
I did not like it. I did not like it.
Hmm. Well then.
Like, if you give me a reason as to why this guy talks like a Tonka truck, I will I will
Accept
accept
it and
it.
move on.
Like, if you tell me that, like, he came
He crashed his
from
javelin going 150 miles an hour into the sidewall of Friedmar. Or what is that city? It starts with an F. The one that the
Freemark,
Heart of
Freemark.
Rage. Yeah, Freemark. If he plowed it into the side Friedmark during the battle, okay, he knocked something loose,
yeah,
little bit of an injury.
it gave
That's
him that
fine.
it gave him that huge face scar and also damaged 87% of his brain. Like,
Sure.
that's fine. Just tell me something, all right? And I haven't. I'm going to dig through all the little codex entries about him to
To
see if
see
there's
if
if
that's the
there's
case.
anything that you can tell me about this guy, but I don't understand why. I don't get it.
I
Oh,
liked
man.
Yarrow.
I thought it was kind of funny.
Oh.
Dude, his dance. Everyone, please complete his missions so you can see his drunken dance at the end. It's so worth it.
the
Even if you don't like the way he talks,
the
just go
dance
watch his drunk
the
dance.
dance was pretty. It was pretty good.
It was pretty good. It was pretty good. Yeah, I thought overall I liked it. I actually got into the Crimson Lancer radio show, but I'm nosy, and they had a thread where one of the main characters fell in love with a suit of armor, or excuse me, a javelin who came to life, and I was just like,
That's
okay,
funny.
going back to your roots there, BioWare. I see you. Romance, anything
Yeah,
or anyone.
yeah.
Yep, yep.
So that's about it
All right,
for
did we want to?
voices, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so those are the main categories that we chose to discuss to give you a little bit of context about Anthem as a whole, the Anthem that BioWare wanted you to see, the Anthem that they worked really hard to deliver on launch day, the Anthem that we as a team didn't necessarily see 100%. We were in their vision, but we did not experience it the way that it was intended because Anthem
No.
came with a lot of bugs,
Hmm.
especially on the PS4. So, guys, let's talk about the technical
Yes.
issues
All
because
right.
we
So
Do we want to
experienced
start from the
everything.
worst to the
first off,
least, or from the
well,
least to the worst?
I was going to say the first off, the thing that we should talk about was Crash's mid cutscene. That
That's pretty annoying.
that
So,
drove all of us bonkers. Okay.
Well,
so
can I
this is
start?
where, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go
Let me
for it.
start.
Go ahead.
Let me just start just a little bit above, just a smidge before that,
Okay.
because I did not experience a crash mid game. Or actually, let me take a two steps back. Scorch and I started playing this game at the exact same time,
Mm-hmm.
or you may have gone in like no, we did start at the
Yeah,
exact
we
same
did
time.
because we
You
were both
crashed
on that
twice.
evening.
Yes, we were both
Hmm.
on the evening that it started. We didn't get a chance to play from like 0 hour because just a ton of stuff happened.
Yeah.
But You crashed twice before you could get in.
Yep.
Yes?
Well, it told me that I couldn't connect to server and then gave me a server time like refresh. And
Okay.
it did that about 4 times and it doubled the time every time it couldn't connect. So I was sitting at the main menu for a solid 5 minutes before I could play.
Okay. I got in immediately, played through the intro cutscene, which was amazing. Your first like mini mission, Heart of Rage, where you're introduced to your character. Go through your first mission, where they introduce the different mission types to you. And then I make it to Fort Tarsis, where they do your side character intros. And the next two cutscenes would not load for me. It was just a screen where the action was taking place. No dialogue, no
Terrible.
subtitles. I always have the subtitles on. It was just like when you first meet Owen, apparently he's like helping another cipher with her cipher chair.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I had a chair, no people in it.
An empty chair is talking?
And no, I didn't have any dialogue. I just had an empty seat, heavy shadow. And it ran the entire length of the cutscene. The cutscene ended, and then I'm in the next point, and that happens to me for the next cutscene. I don't even know the next person that you meet. It just happened. I still don't know who that is. That happened to me for when I first started the game, and that's when I said to myself, "Damn it, BioWare, you got me. You got me. You got me. I shield for you, free of charge." And you got me.
The guy who accused us of being a shill on Twitter was correct.
I know.
Or no, it's more like inadvertently correct.
Yeah.
I trusted them. I believed them when they said that the big demo issue was on a late earlier version of the game platform, and that we wouldn't have that issue when we were at launch. I believed them, and it was true. We did not have that issue at launch. We just had a whole shit ton of other things.
Yeah.
So, okay, now we can get to the game crashes.
Okay.
So where do we want to
story-related
start?
ones I think are the most aggravating. So
all right.
In some of the most pivotal cutscenes, especially the ones involving after Owen's betrayal, and or even to figure out that Owen betrayed you, the first time we played it through, it was about to get to that part of the cutscene after some story had been done to explain General Tarsis.
This part.
And then all three of us experienced something different.
Yeah.
Somebody went to a blank load screen. I went to a stare at the ground with those little black flies buzzing in the top half and hearing a ka-thunk of a javelin as the same sound you make when you land on the ground. It was that like every 5 seconds, and no audio, no voice audio, just a thunk, and just like stuck on repeat. And then I don't know, one of you guys experienced something different besides that. But it was basically a total hose down. Major portion of the plot, besides Vast's other, mishaps that she had already had at the very introduction of the story, at a very pivotal point of even understanding what the hell is going on with the game, and it's just like, nap, and then after all that happened, one crashed, two of us rebooted, and by the time it was all done, I think Vast was the only one that the mission didn't count for, so we got to replay it under your profile to then replay it in an effort to then watch the cutscene we were supposed to have seen. But even then, it wasn't complete. So what had happened was when we came back in, me and Scorch got the second half of the cutscene upon loading back in the game, and Vast got nothing. But when we replayed it with Vast, we all got the first part we missed, but then me and Scorch were immediately booted out to Tarsis after that and skipped the second cutscene because it already counted for us while Vast watched the whole thing all the way through.
Yep.
Yes!
It was super stupid. I have never seen something like that in my entire life in a campaign of a video game.
No way.
Regardless, it just replays it. Any other campaign ever, it just replays it for you. It's just cinema. But no, 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 no. Anthem and Cinema have a bit of a touchy subject. They don't get along. And another
Fickle
piece of that
relationship.
cinema is the load of your javelin when you go to free play or a mission or something when you're in the elevator about to do launch. I don't think we've ever seen that cinema execute successfully.
Not
Like,
since the
period.
Not
demo.
since the
It
demo.
worked in the demo part of the time,
And then they
and it
broke it for the
just
rest of the
doesn't
game.
work in the full release. And you could
It is.
Agreed.
you could play that in lieu of part of the load screen, so it makes the load seem quicker. Or you could play
Everyone would
that,
appreciate that.
or you could play that during matchmaking, and have matchmaking not feel as long. But somehow it glitches out so that you get all of matchmaking and you get all of the load screen.
All that load screen.
It's
from
the worst of both
2%
worlds.
on.
It's so true.
So yeah, that to me, but I mean, it's okay for the matchmaking and stuff. Like honestly, I could live with that. What's really hard to swallow is they're in the middle of telling me this story that they're super excited to talk about how unique it is, and it doesn't freaking work. And
Yeah.
I'm sitting here like, well, I would be horrified if I was by myself because I'd be like, who else can I piggyback off to see this scene that I didn't get to see? Like, I didn't actually get to experience the story that I was supposed to and have paid for. I
Yeah.
mean, that's kind of something else that irks me is I can't go back and play these story missions. But I guess you can if you make a new pilot and all that stuff. But you can't just go back and play it. So you missed it. SOL, sucks to be you. Like that to me is just awful. Like that's
Yeah.
a terrible way to construct the basis foundation classic of your game.
I mean, the pure fact that the only reason why we were able to make sense of any of that story is because one of us glitched to the point where we had to replay the mission is
Because it didn't count. Yeah,
is pretty
that's a testament
damning.
to how broken
You know what I
how
mean?
the campaign is.
And
Oh, yeah.
it wasn't just like any cutscene. It wasn't like to set up a story or anything like that. It was like the
The
pivotal
scene.
it was the twist. We missed the twist.
We
Yeah.
missed the twist.
Because then you get Faye and Halleck sitting here talking about, oh, you know, Owen such. It's like, what do you mean? What happened to
What
Owen?
did Owen
happened to
do?
Owen?
What
yeah,
happened?
what the frick is going on?
I
No,
mean,
tell me, what did Owen do?
I knew he was being a moody tool, but that's about all he could do, right?
And then they start talking about, oh man, I can't believe what Owen did. Like, what did Owen do? So yeah, that to me, that just for the rest of the game, the expectation was from that point on, gee, I hope I get to see what cinema's happening next, or oh, did you happen to see this part of the cutscene? Oh yeah, I saw
Did
that.
you
So,
happen to see it?
yeah,
Oh.
like it's just like a mayhaps type thing. Like, oh yeah, I actually did see that piece of story. You know, the one that they were trying to convey from the get-go that they
Yeah.
allowed us to see in
Yeah.
a non-glitched fashion.
And can I
In
just
full
say,
color,
can I just
unfrozen.
say, like story-wise, I think it was a pretty weak point to make Owen the twist and have him
Yeah,
like riff
I'm-
off of his moodiness. I don't see a way where you could have done that with his moodiness well. I think you could have done a lot with Owen.
I don't know.
But
for as mature as these, see, that's the problem. Is that it didn't fit. Is the problem?
Yeah.
They talked about his backstory. He's an orphan. He basically was given away by his parents through his own sheer will. He got himself on his own 2 feet to where he's at. So then all of a sudden when he's with you, he acts like a 6-year-old and digresses like 13 years worth of maturity of surviving on his own to be moody? Like, no, I don't understand where that even makes sense with his own character. Like, that's what was off-putting about that entire scenario. It's like, great, so Moody Owen has stolen the greatest item, allegedly, in this game, taken it for himself because you didn't teach him how to fly javelins, and now he is responsible for nearly collapsing that part of the world.
yeah,
I think that they could have done that whole thing better if they wanted Owen to turn, or they needed Owen to turn, because I feel like they have an additional story for Owen, and clearly he is one of their favorite characters. Like, When I say they, I mean either the writers or someone. He's someone's favorite character, right? Because he got
Yeah.
to do a lot of stuff in the story.
Yeah.
His
And they
turn.
left it open to do more stuff for
He's
DLCs,
all
but
right.
the way
Owen
they left it in
is
that can opened area is just like, really? Could you just have developed this or not done it so cheesy that's kind of counter to the character you've just spent most of the game building up to this point?
and
yeah.
and that's why I said that they messed up with the monitor, because if the monitor
A
was a
lot.
bigger threat to you in the game, if you had more interaction with him, if even you had the like scene where you so all right, two things. One, they spent a lot of time telling you that you were a hero, but you never had to experience any of the things, um, any of the pitfalls of a hero to appear heroic in like a storytelling sense, right? Your most down moment was something that you played for like 2 minutes at the start of the game when everyone died at the heart of rage, in the heart of rage, and there's not a lot of build up of you being that hero in the series. Like you have a lot of conversations and you do some good things, but like there's
Oh
not a
yeah, you
real
shot that
rise.
scar in the face. Man, you're awesome.
You know what I mean? There's not a real rise, and so there's not a lot of obstacles that you're actually facing
It's
as the hero
literally
of the
a
story.
character elevation of right place, right time.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so when Owen makes his twist, like in the game world, there's no reason for him to do it. Based on his one character and based on the level of threat that you have received in the game. So if you made the monitor a bigger threat, had more interaction with them,
Yeah.
maybe even a battle where you fail, or maybe you as a character put on General Tarsus's stuff and you can't fly it, but Owen can, and that's what the thing that's
Sure.
the thing that happens. Like that would have been a much done a greater service to your story and to the character. I'm just
Well,
saying.
and to the interwoven nature of the characters. I mean, the Cypher's supposed to be like the right hand of javelin pilots. Like that's their role, and the role just kind of just gets decimated on its own. It's like, oh yeah, well you upset him, so he's not going to be your right hand man anymore, and he's going to be his own like whiny sidekick. Like
He's gonna be
it,
his own whiny sidekick. Wow.
yeah.
That's
I mean,
great.
it really just does a disservice to the character they built at the beginning of him being a hardened individual that's made it out of his own sheer will because of the hand that's been dealt to him, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden he transforms from that into 6-year-old. Like, it's so counter to what they built, it confuses me. Like, I don't understand
Yeah.
why.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, people get jealous and stuff, but not to the degree of, yeah, I think I'm going to possibly wreck the chance of people surviving a, multi-world event, and because I just don't like the fact that you said I couldn't pilot a job.
Yeah.
I think another thing that they could have done and probably should have done is when Owen narrates what happens to him, they should have had a minor cutscene of that. Like not to
Like a
the point
flashback?
where no, just like a break in the story. Like they have a scene with the monitor doing nefarious things, right?
Yeah.
So they could have had another, scene where, he flies down, he starts to build his dawn shield, and then it like cuts away. So you think everything's okay, and then when he appears with the
He's
scorched
got,
face,
yeah.
like
And it's like,
that would have been a
oh,
more
it didn't go
dramatic
as
reveal.
Yeah.
I'll buy that.
And of course, it's so easy for me to say this. I'm pretty sure there are people in BioWare who may have already had those kind of ideas, and it came down to like, budgeting or manpower, resource hours, and stuff like that.
Yep.
But if you're wanting to come in and like make a statement with your narrative, because you're the narrative team in the gaming industry, like y'all should have hit a little bit harder. Should have given us a little bit more.
Yeah. I
Call
totally
me next
agree.
time.
I
I have a
mean,
very low rate.
free.
Would it feel bad to say that I thought the story was a little on the short side?
Well,
excluding the side missions. Even though the side missions contributed minimally to the main story, as far as just kind of like filler that made it, feel bigger than it really was. Like I didn't feel like the main story was very long for this game.
so here's how I think about the length of the story for this game. I think it was pretty good for the type of game that it created. It's
Okay.
kind of a light-ish RPG that's very heavily co-op centered. It's along the lines of something like The Division or Destiny or something like that. And
Oh man, those.
I can point to both of those games and say that they objectively had less story than this game
That's true.
Yeah.
as far as, how far it went. But the way that you have to structure a game like this makes storytelling really hard to do in
Mhm.
a long form way.
Mhm.
Um,
Hmm.
man, how do I put this? They were able to make Mass Effect as long as it was because it was a single player game. And
Yes.
a lot of a lot of your experience that you are gathering from Anthem and The Division and Destiny and stuff like that are experiences that you create with your friends. And when you have this competition in the game between experiences with your friends and experiences with the game, there has to be some kind of middle ground, right? You don't need that middle ground if it's a single player mission or a single player game. You don't need that middle ground if it's just a go out and play multiplayer like a Battlefield or Call of Duty.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
this is something that's in between. And as
Hmm.
far as I can tell, they have not, like, no company has hit that perfect sweet spot of, uh, like, friend experience and story experience. I will say that Anthem got closer than most, I think, in my
Mhm.
opinion, but there's a lot of work still to do in this genre
Hmm.
that's really just emerging.
All right.
Mhm.
So other mistakes that they had to keep things moving. I didn't notice as much rubber banding as I saw in the demo. A little bit, but it was like the whole character rather than a piece of them. So that was kind of minimal.
Yeah,
I still saw audio to visual mismatch
Mhm.
ranging from half a second to a whole like second.
yeah. When you
Yeah.
opened up those big doors in Fort Tarsis, if you walked from the garage to anywhere else,
Oh yeah, those
the
were a constant. I almost
this
excluded those because they were always
yeah,
glitched.
the sound with the doors never matched up.
Mm-mm.
I was going more for like world events, like things screaming, roaring, guns going off, shield bash effects, like your
Oh yeah,
actual
that
interaction
too.
stuff in the world.
That too.
Um, and not all the time, but about maybe 15%, 15% of the time, I'd say.
Yeah.
You'd notice, oh wow, my visuals are mismatched from the audio, and then it kind of would solve itself out after the next load or the next point completion or something like that. But it was still present.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. Trying to go from the small ones to the big ones here.
I got one. There was the menu delay when you're salvaging, or excuse me, junking items in your vault space. Um, when you press the button, there's like a minute, or excuse me, a second or maybe a second and a half delay between you inputting and then the actual action taking place on the screen. And then there's like a delay for the item to move from one screen to the next screen.
I
And
might have noticed that, but I stopped using the vault. I think subconsciously when
Yeah.
I saw it was slow, I was like, I can do this faster in Forge,
Well,
and I think I ended up doing it in Forge.
I never used the vault. I did everything in Forge, and then when I
Oh.
tried to do the vault, I immediately noticed that it was slower and left it entirely.
so slow. So
Yeah.
and then after you do that, like I experienced it the one time because I wanted to try. I knew we were going to talk about it. I wanted to try as many of the game elements as I could. Then once you do that, you have to go to the actual junk screen to
Hmm.
delete all those items, and then there's another delay. Let's just say that whole process felt like it took 2 hours. It was so slow.
Well, if you want to talk about delays, how much of the game percentage-wise do you think we have played that are just loading screens?
95.
What? Man, someone feels strongly about this
Oh
topic.
boy! Oh boy!
Well, but here's the thing. Here's why I say it's. I'm exaggerating it, but it is a very, very, very large amount because the loading screens are in the game. They are very slow, and we errored out or crashed out so much. So when you come back into the
Yeah.
game, you have to wait for the game to restart. Like, connect to the server, then another loading screen.
Yeah, absolutely. And
So
that's
yeah,
if, and
a
that's
Pretty
lot.
if,
unforgiving.
and that's if Anthem didn't completely brick your console.
Yes,
Okay,
let's talk
well,
about that real
I wasn't
quick.
going to get into that, but yes. So this is an error that even that I don't. Scorch has experienced, I think, once or twice.
Twice, yeah.
I, to date, have experienced it 4 times post launch. And that is an error where if you quit the game and then you softly quit the game to main menu, it has the ability to completely kill the game and kill your console as if you just unplugged it from the wall.
Hmm.
Or another instance I did it was I softly quit the game and then closed application through PlayStation and then it killed everything all the way off.
That happened
So
to me once.
there are multiple instances that I have had this game completely and utterly crash my PlayStation. And apparently it is now to the point where EA recognizes that this is an actual problem and not just a onesie twosie isolated case. And it apparently has gotten so bad that people have reported that their PlayStations have gotten bricked because of this game crashing on their consoles. And game crashes pretty much will stop hardware fast in its tracks, and some of that hardware is not meant to be stopped on a dime
Yeah,
because of its
definitely not.
kinetic energies and motions and things like that. And so, some computer hardware does not like that, and when you stop it, it's going to let you know it doesn't like it, and sometimes it will let you know in a very bad way that it didn't like it.
My breaking
And you are going
hardware.
to be, yeah, like destroying your hardware. And now, I mean, it got to the point where Sony was even recognizing the error code crashes, because it does provide an error code on the crash, that they were actually, in isolated cases, reimbursing people their money for purchasing Anthem so that way they could get their money back because it crashed their console.
Yeah.
And that has almost never happened. You haven't even heard of stuff like that happening since the days of No Man's Sky returns. Like that's how ridiculous this sounds.
So
Oof.
I heard this story, and before then I didn't know that it was bricking consoles until Arcadius told me this afternoon. And I am now worried because I have seen symptoms of this on my own PlayStation. I'm worried enough about it that I'm not going to play Anthem until this gets fixed. I'm
And
not going
honestly,
to risk damage to my hardware.
there are many Reddit users. I mean, this is already a very prevalent conversation that's ongoing on the internet. And because it has been made aware, other people are like, "Hey, folks, just giving you my 2 cents. You might not want to do this." And
Yeah.
several Reddit users have sworn off the game until either BioWare or EA publicly comes out and says that the console crashing issue has been resolved. Which, in all retrospect, is probably a wise idea if you spend considerable time on your consoles or spend considerable gaming time. But even then, I would say just period, because I don't see a lot of people that like throwing away $250 just like that.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
250.
More like
or at
450.
least,
I know what you're talking
depending,
about.
sorry, depending on what your super sale was, you think you got a good deal at. Now get ready to throw all of that away and pay full price again. So
Yeah.
I would definitely caution anyone listening that that problem right now exists. So you have been warned. And
And
since it's happened to my console 4 times in the span of 2 weeks, I would say I'm ripe for not playing this thing until they get it right.
Yeah.
and we just want to reiterate that right now this is PS4
Yes. It is.
issue. It has not been confirmed for Xbox, and it is not something that the PC players are experiencing. At this point in time, I think PC might be the most optimal place to play Anthem. It seems like their loading times are still there, but it's shorter. Graphic fidelity is better, and they're not experiencing these type of crashes. So,
Yeah.
but I told this to the guys. I can't recommend another PS4 player purchase this game with your hard-earned money or your grandparents' birthday money or however you got your coins. I can't recommend you purchasing this game for PS4 right now because it's broken.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It really
is. It's an enjoyable game to play, but it is honestly so beyond broken. And I don't. Some people wanted to compare it to Andromeda levels of broken, but that's just
God,
kind of
no.
like, it's just kind of wompy. That's just like wompy broken. This is like unsound structurally broken.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Like you
listen,
can have contorted weird faces and call it broken. Okay, fine. You get a giggle out of it. When your PlayStation bricks itself, there are no giggles to be had.
yeah, only
Zero are
rage
the
and
amount of
tears.
giggles.
It's salt.
Yeah, there's gonna be some very salty sessions, and nobody wants that.
Yeah. I can safely say that, like Vast, I cannot recommend purchasing this game right now. I might be able to recommend purchasing this game in a year. I think in a year they will have fixed
I think they'll
most
fix it sooner
tentatively.
than that, to be honest. I
Well,
think
some of
within
the
this
major
first
ones,
6 months,
yeah.
and they're still in the honeymoon period, so I still
Are
think they're
they?
in the.
Because I would have kicked them out the bed like last week.
Yeah, really.
Okay, so this
Would have
goes
lined up
into
those divorce
retrospect.
papers.
So this kind of goes into a much deeper debate we won't have right now on the trend of developers using players as their test base. And depending on how your viewpoint is, if you think it should be a 100% fully fledged completed game, no single issue present, then yes, you would dump it. And if you're of the people that are now being swayed with the times of, well, they got to work things through because of the complexity of multiplayer and peer-to-peer connections and servers. It depends on what camp you're sitting in and believing that. So that's why I might kind of
Yeah.
not necessarily
But
outright
but
say
here's
that.
the thing. Here's the thing. We're not. I think we are. I would actually give BioWare more leeway on this than I would give other games of this ilk. Except for we're
Ilk.
beyond that camp right now. Like we are talking
Yeah.
about a game that will brick your
Console.
PlayStation
It will
4.
freeze your multi-$100 gaming machine into a plastic box of nothingness.
Yeah.
So this isn't about server connections. This isn't about peer-to-peer sharing. This isn't about rubber banding. This isn't about even like gaming structures and rewards and loot. Like
Yeah.
that's the kind of those are the
Non-loot
kind of
box
things.
related.
Yeah, those are the kind of things that we can discuss, and that I feel that we can have a really good debate about the game as a service model and working things out and testing things out. But this is not a fully functioning game on a massive platform, and that's not good.
Yeah. Definitely
all.
Also,
not.
I think we missed aesthetics. I feel like we missed that little segment. Because the one thing I wanted to bring up is they talked about the customization, which, don't get me wrong, the detail of customization is very good and very awesome. But I sat back and realized there's only two suit. If you exclude the people who did the pre-order, there's only two suit configurations for every Javelin class. And
I
that's
think-
it. There's
I
no
think-
other earnable suits yet.
We hit that pretty early on when you got up right
Okay,
quick.
sorry.
Yeah.
I missed it when I was out for a second.
No, it's cool.
But yeah, I thought that was really odd. Like, they talked about all this customization and they showed us a bunch of it, and it's like, okay, so I've got two suits. What about all the other, like, what about a rarity suit or like a rare suit, epic suit, legend suit, legendary suit? Like, you would think that each difficulty tier would have a separate set of suits
Yeah.
that you would, customize and bling out and stuff. And so far, it's just been two.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that because well, actually, hold on. Let's take a step back because in my mind, the conversation about loot trends toward a discussion and then how Anthem can be better. But have we actually hit like our rage point? Have we actually told everyone the truth about this game?
I don't know.
Like, do we feel like we've?
Do you want to fling more shit?
I mean, but that's my question. Have
That's
we?
not
I don't
really-
feel like we have.
I mean,
I
it's
hit
definitely
Yarrow,
got
we
its
hit
issues.
Owen, we hit glitches, we hit console brickery. We hit
Which is
load
awful.
screens, we hit kind of a lack of armor.
Okay. Well then, yeah. And then we did say that at least two of us can't recommend this game to anyone, especially on the PS4 at this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So so we're going to start swinging into a general question that I'm asking us, the group. How can Anthem be better? And we're going to start with the loot because Arcadius brought it up. A very fair point because in all caps with exclamation points on my master list of lists, I say not enough loot. And
yeah.
in the armor situation that Arcadius references is just one of those things where Anthem as a game should have come out and given us more. This game should have probably launched with maybe 3, not counting your Legion of Dawn armor set, 3 armor sets. Or actually,
I would think
hold
one
on.
for each rarity level. Like,
Yeah,
would that
one for
not
each
make
rarity
sense
level.
that each rarity level would have a configuration type you could earn?
Yeah. So
Maybe
the first one that you
I
get is
don't think
uncommon.
that's too far fetched. Yeah.
I don't think so at all. So the one that you get base is your uncommon. Then they do have a rare. They do have an epic, and then like the Legion of Dawn is considered your
Legendary.
yeah. So they should your legendary. So we know they have them because but they're not immediately in the game, and so they should be immediately in the game, and then options to purchase should be in the store. And they are addressing this slightly. In one of their live streams, they mentioned that in an upcoming, I think it's either in the March patch or the April patch, they're going to introduce stronghold-specific loot. And in the stronghold-specific loot, you will receive additional items. I think they hinted that they may even be cosmetic, but if by cosmetic they mean armor or vinyl, I don't know.
Like, that doesn't make sense. Why wait for a patch? Like, why does that need to be a patch?
I think they're lumping it in with like a content drop. Yeah.
And I don't even know if it's going to be an armor. Like I'm not sure why they didn't at launch have a Scar set, a Dominion set, and a Scorpion set, and that you get those pieces at the end of your strongholds.
Yeah,
like
I
those
just
should
thought
have
that was
been
a
in the
puzzling
game already.
thing. For the amount of customization that they've touted, shown, and that we've experienced, and it's like, well, it's just that. Well, Well, are there other things? No, it's just that. Oh, okay. I don't know. It just feels like, probably rode the hype train maybe a little too much for certain things, but it's like like you said earlier, Vast, I just kind of expected a little more.
Yeah.
For what they kind of led on to.
Can I talk a little bit about the way the guns look?
Yes.
Okay. So
there's not any variation.
So when usually, a hallmark of RPGs and stuff is that you start out with crap like cardboard and duct tape gear, and you move up to the blingiest, most shoulder paddingest, like biggest thing that like could never in a million years get any dirt or anything on it because it repels dirt magically. You know what I mean? It's like the best thing since before the thing that everybody compared to sliced bread. And in this game, the guns don't change. A common assault rifle is going to look like an epic assault rifle. There's a little bit of variation when it goes into legendaries, but the same skeleton is there. Which means until you get up to legendary,
Masterworks.
you're still going to be hauling around the cardboard and duct tape number until like later, and it doesn't feel good. There's no sense of progression with like power or anything like that when you have
other than the digits of the skill points.
Like it's fine to start out with like this gun that's barely held together that looks like it's, you know, it's got a piece of tarp over it, like like all of the guns that they give you, you know what I mean?
But at the end, and duct tape.
Yeah, at the end, I want to be able I want to be able to whip out a gun that will kill people just from how goddamn shiny it is. You know what I mean?
Or just how
Where's the
good-looking
thunder
it
and lightning in your weapons?
Yeah,
Prospero,
really.
Get on it.
You had a guy that talked about that.
We haven't addressed the armor yet. We haven't even addressed the fact that there's not enough armor choices for the thunder and lightning, let alone your guns.
Yeah. It irks me that the thing that loot is built around is not varied to the point that you feel unique and powerful. You feel like cardboard and duct tape.
And that's so confusing to me. And I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, Borderlands series is like still, it is the year of our Lord Beyonce 2019, and Borderlands 2 still has the top position as looter shooter. It's not a shared world shooter, but a looter shooter in a shared, you know, co-op game. In terms of like diversity of guns and abilities and play styles and
when did that come out? 2013, something like that.
Yeah,
it's a really long time ago.
Oh,
you guys.
Shoot!
Arcadius fell off the world.
God.
The first Borderlands game came out in 2009.
Wow.
10 years ago. Borderlands 2 came out in 2012. I should have known that because I was still in grad school then. And yeah, 2012. And it's still the pinnacle of looter shooter.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
And I know people at BioWare have played this game. Where are my kick-ass guns? And I get it. They want your abilities to be one of the things that make you the most powerful, but that doesn't mean that they needed to skimp on the guns themselves.
Yeah.
If these things were just in profile, like, and you hadn't played the game before, you would not be able to tell the difference between a shotgun and an assault rifle and an LMG. You wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to do it.
That's very true.
They all are boxes. They're just boxes with a nozzle and a trigger.
Nozzle.
Okay, who designed these things? Like, no offense,
Man.
because I know you worked
You're
really
really
hard
taking
on
this
this.
duct tape thing to
Ooh,
heart.
boy. I didn't know this
Look,
can of worms was this deep. Let's keep going.
I'm mad. Look.
And we're at the bottom of a 55-gallon barrel.
You
a
even got a
55-gallon
southern
drum.
twang on it. I know you're into it now.
I swear this is the bottom it can be.
I'm mad.
You
Love
brought
it.
me the peasant gun.
Love
and
it.
I am an elite soldier. What are you bringing to me in this game? But seriously, like there's not a lot of variation there, and then they give you like multiples of that type. Like there's maybe there's maybe like 2 different versions of that gun, but you can't tell the difference visually. The Devastator looks the same as the Whirlwind, looks the same as the other one, Deadeye.
The Deadeye.
Like,
I will say they sound the same. They sound different. One sounds like a howitzer, and the other sounds like a pew.
This is true. They do sound different.
You gotta give them that. Their sound for the guns is pretty good. I do enjoy
The sound is
nice
really good. We didn't-
guttural sound.
It would be better if, they matched up with the action, but, we already covered that.
They can't have everything.
I mean,
But
I
yeah,
can have my cake if it's far away.
You may think you paid for this game, but you can't have everything.
And like I know, like intellectually, although I have never ever in my life designed a game and I don't have the skills necessary to do so, I can barely draw a straight line on a page, let alone a circle. I get it. It is a difficult thing to do. There is a lot of different things that they needed to contend with, and there are a lot of different teams. Who knows what was going on with BioWare during the
Yeah.
6 years of development? I wish you all well, and continue in hopeful success in this game so I can get more, because I really did like playing it. I just didn't enjoy the Anthem experience. That caveat to the side, there needs to be more freaking guns. And if you have to make them faction specific, go ahead and make them faction specific. We're in a magical sci-fi fantasy world.
The world is your oyster.
With giant titans that shoot slow-ass balls that can kill you from 50 feet away. And you're telling me the only gun I have to combat them is a
Machine
box
pistol.
with tape?
Or a tinier box they call the machine
I
pistol.
reject you and I rebuke you.
Wow, yeah, that's pretty damning evidence right there. I don't think I can sum it up better than that, man.
But I can go on to the next part of this conversation because it actually joins in. I'm on my soapbox right now, guys. I'm so upset about this part, the loot. I'm so upset about this. Because they want you to feel great and all powerful because of your javelin and your javelin's abilities, and those abilities are amazing, but they're not varied either. So let's talk about that.
Talking about the javelins themselves or not?
Like, you mean the
javelin
number of different
abilities.
things you can equip?
The javelin abilities.
Okay.
We already talked about the support items, which are almost non-functioning in the game, or not functioning, like you can just almost dismiss them in the game, from like easy to maybe Grandmaster level 1. Like they just don't really do anything for you. The way that the game is set up. The abilities that you have for your characters. Is there an acid ability for the Storm?
What do you mean asset ability?
Acid.
Oh, acid. ACID. No, there is not. What the Storm really shines with lightning and electricity and stuff like that.
So each of the classes have one or maybe 2 or 3 non-detonator, or let's just call them normal ability. A normal ability means they're not a detonator or a primer. Then they'll have a detonator, and then they'll have, or excuse me, a primer, and then they'll have a detonator. And then some of those 3 types, you'll have an element applied to some of them as well. So you just have like an impact or an element, and those elements are fire, ice, lightning, and
Acid.
You can put acid in there, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
acid.
acid.
And primer.
And okay, and out of those, the Storm doesn't have an acid ability that we know of.
Yeah, not
Doesn't
right
necessarily
now.
have to, I don't think.
But a lot of the acid abilities, I think, are tailored to much more up close.
I think all of them are really close range. I mean, that's true for the Interceptor and the Colossus. Like, you got to be within spitting distance of those things, literally, to be using an acid ability.
And the
Minus
Storm,
a grenade you can chuck, but
the Storm is a long-range javelin. You know, it's built for being far away and
so that's where the
dealing
lightning
a
and the
whole
fire
bunch
will
of
take.
And
I think
having the ability to use the primers to the advantage of the other javelins. So I'm not really miffed that I don't have an acid ability. That's not something that I would use.
Yeah, but my point is, okay, it's not something that you would use, but why does the character not have one?
I don't know.
They couldn't come up with a long distance
Honestly,
acid
with the
ability
errors
that
they've
you
had in
have?
the game, I think the acid mechanic was literally hard-coded for short range. Is that
Yeah,
beyond
But
me
what?
to say
that's
that?
probably it.
Yeah,
But the
but
acid mechanic and its visuals and effects, they can just use one piece of code across multiple javelins and use basically recycle it so they don't reinvent the wheel. And so what you're left with is actually an acid ability that's the same but
Well,
aesthetically different because
all
it's
right.
used
but
differently
that
on
doesn't
different
make
So
teams.
sense. That's
let
what I'm
me
saying.
let me let me put this out there. All right. And this is the fabled acid ability for a storm. I'm just spitballing right now.
Mhm.
You could reskin the fireball skill.
Mhm.
You could make it green, you could make it splattery, and you could make it charge up, and you could hurl it at however many enemies there were. And you could put an acid status effect on it. Done.
Right.
But out of
So I
everything,
think
oh, sorry, never mind.
no. So that's the point that I'm getting at. Like, okay, that one class, and the reason why I keep on verifying, does it not have one? Does it, because I didn't play it that much. I maybe played maybe 3 hours of the storm, and I don't remember ever equipping one. Um,
Hmm.
but that's one less attack, DPS attack that character has versus the other javelins. Why is it not
Yeah.
there? And then
Can't tell you that one.
you so that's my point there. Like
But
we took a
is
long
it
way
javelin
around.
balance? Because really, all three of the other javelins have acid-based attacks except the storm. And the
Mhm.
Yeah.
storm's the only one that's not on the ground. So that makes me think that all the acid-based attacks are for the javelins that run around on the ground.
But why? The other
Like,
but the well
Why
no,
though,
I'm not.
Arcadius? Why
so
though?
it's like so you're frustrated that it doesn't have an acid attack in principle of just the fact that they should all
Yeah,
kind of have the same ability to do or cross.
it's
Uh,
not even that they should all have the same ability. It's just one less ability that this game gives you to choose to use in the game.
Maybe that
And
makes you use a
then
different javelin then, or helps you in the diversity of using other javelins.
Man,
but it's
Arcadius, you're
just
really
one
good at
status
devil's
effect.
advocate.
But I don't even see that as a
Sorry.
devil's advocate thing. Like,
Mm,
because all the other characters well, no, hold on.
if you made one character OP with all the abilities of primers and detonators and status effects, then that means no matter what boss or scenario, you can just quick change your status effect to be the optimal solution rather than fight in a party setting of differing abilities.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But you already do that. Like, there's no I don't know of any calculations
I
right
think we're
now that
splitting
means.
hairs on the wrong thing here,
Well,
but
no.
I
I
kind
think
of
that
get
we
what
are.
you're.
I think that we are. But my main point is that there's not enough ability types in the game, and that's one less ability for a character in the game to play. There's not a lot of variation in the way that your attacks look. And again, I get that there's a lot of screen real estate being eaten up by the storm anyway. Um,
Yeah.
and then there's tons of effects going on all over the place. But of those, like, this is a game that's supposed to give you choice. I would have liked to see more choice in those abilities in the suit that's supposed to make you feel super awesome and super powerful.
Oh,
Now, I'm
That's
not
boy.
even talking
totally
ultimates. I'm
that's
just
totally
talking
valid.
detonators and primers.
I totally
There
understand
should
where
have
you're
been
coming
more.
from. That's absolutely valid. Yeah. I don't think I could put it in any other better way. That's what it is.
And I hope that we get to a point that there are more. So, like, in 6 months from now, they release the Chains of Fire, and then my interceptor like ignites and
Gets
then like
flamen
fire
feet.
tentacles like slap everyone in the face as
No,
I run
you get
around.
flamen
You know what I
feet.
mean?
You're gonna harken back to to Diablo, and you're gonna run around with your feet on fire and catch people on
Yeah.
fire.
I'd be okay with that. There just should be a little bit more
Yeah.
for a game that I can't play right now.
Or won't due to
Yeah.
safety concerns of investments and hardware.
Can we talk about the reputation system, the reputation rewards with the different factions real quick?
Sure.
For the coin earnage.
Well, not
For
the
the coin or
alliance.
earnage. No, not the Alliance. For just the Sentinel, the Arcanist, and the
Oh.
Freelancer faction status that you were gaining throughout the
Oh yeah,
game.
incrementally as you do various tasks and stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Um,
I really would
I
have
did.
liked to see that tie in with armor sets that you can choose. Like, there's a
Mm-hmm.
specific freelancer armor set that you can only get if you max out freelancer
Honestly, I
rep.
thought that's what it was for. Was for
Yeah.
equipment, but the only thing it's
As it
for is for
stands,
blueprint
it's just
builds.
blueprints, and those are useless because you get 8 of the same gun every mission you run.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you brought that up. I would also like to have, um, on top of like more rewards with the faction, which may be coming, but it's not here now. So, um, some type of
Woohoo!
visual cue when I actually made it to the next level would have been nice. Because they keep on flashing it when you get the stuff when you're talking to people or when you complete an item
Yeah.
or when you actually find one of the inscriptions on the wall, which I really love, and I wanted to see more importance tied to that too. Um,
Like Easter egg style discoveries.
Yeah.
yeah, but like a visual cue would have been nice where it says you've reached level 2 and you receive these blueprints. All of that happened is I would go into my thing and I'd have a new blueprint. I
Oh
didn't know
look,
where it
new
was coming
blueprints.
from. And
Yeah?
like
Yeah,
I
someone
didn't know
magically
which
gifted
faction.
me blueprints.
I don't know. I still, don't even really know which faction is giving me the blueprints for the consumables.
Yeah.
I just know the Sentinel faction gives a lot of Colossus gear. So I pretty much try to do Sentinel-y things, but you have to go into the menus and look at what each faction thing will give you. It's got a whole list. It'll show you every
Yeah.
blueprint that faction gives you, but it's a giant fat list of all the blueprints. So if you just kind of have to hunt for the ones that are Interceptor-based or Ranger-based or, whichever.
Yeah.
The
Hmm.
Sentinel,
And
I know for me, it contains most of the Colossus perks.
And so, like, it's just one of those things. It's in the game, but it's buried because the menu system and the UI is like layered and many. So it would have been
Hmm.
just nice to just see that recognized somewhere outside of that little screen.
Like a call out queue. Even though you've accomplished it, it's
Yeah.
going to show you to your face, hey, by the way,
Like
you've earned this thing.
a little golden ding with the number switching from 2 to 3 is enough.
Friggin'
You
Call of
know what I
Duty
Yeah,
mean?
prestige style it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Bam,
And
bum, bum,
then
bum, bum.
I also would have liked if and maybe they did this and I just didn't recognize it, but once you switched levels, if they had a conversation with that faction rep or a mission from that faction rep,
Yeah.
that would have given you more of the story, and it could have already been integrated that way and I just didn't recognize it because they didn't give me any cues. Like my
Yeah.
Yarrow quest could have been dependent on my faction rep, but I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. This game, man. This game.
What's next,
uh
Best?
yeah, and that kind of goes into my other critique, which is that there's not necessarily a recognizable achievement system. um and that goes back to what we were saying about, like, the menus being varied and many in your UI. And so the okay, we didn't even talk about this, but there is a portion of the game, the tomb section of the game, which a lot of professional game journalists or whatever uh, mentioned as a grind wall to halt progress or something like that, because when you got to a tomb, there's like a checklist of things that you should have accomplished to complete, to get into the tomb. But a lot of people didn't know that because it referred you to your menu. But once you get into your menu, like, the menu system is really, really clunky. So where do you find those things? Um, I don't think that stopped us.
No,
Really?
because we did everything before we even got to the tomb. So we had already completed 90% of everything the
Yeah.
tombs required by the time we
Mm-hmm.
got to it. So that just means, what that means is the people that got to the tombs and complained about that butt rushed the story and basically didn't do enough actual, I'd call, evened out gameplay between side missions and side quests to earn up all
Or
of
free
that
play.
stuff, or
Or
free
free
play.
play. Yeah.
So So that just tells me they just tried to bum rush the story real quick and didn't get a more, I guess, even expansive play of the or an even sampling of the whole game between free play, side quests, contracts, and by the time you did those along the way with the story, you had absolutely no problems completing those, or
Yeah.
if they weren't already complete.
I absolutely 100% agree to you, but let me play devil's advocate right now because I was thinking about this.
Okay.
And my question to you was, or my idea to you was, I feel like in that instance, we played Anthem the way that the developers intended us to play Anthem, which is
Woot
to
for
have varied
us.
gameplay. I mean, we know what we're doing, but to play story missions, to do your side quests, and to do free play, and experience Anthem the way that it's intended, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
However,
The
what
masses
if
did
that's
not
not the way
necessarily
I
do
want
that.
to play the game? Is
Well,
that a good
um,
way to gate? Is it necessary to gate their process
I
with
think
these
it's too
arbitrary
subjective
values?
because then that's trying to tie the vision, the personal goals with the vision of the game makers, but still saying you have the choice to do whatever you want. It's true, you do have the choice to do whatever you want. You could choose to play the game how they intended, or you could choose to play it in a fast pace that they're not intending, which will turn into a more grindy fashion.
Well,
I
what
mean,
I
it's really hard to pick that apart.
what I think about that whole thing is that like if you ran up against that and let's face it, the requirements to get into the tomb were not that difficult. If
No.
you
Let's take a step back though, because on the early access PC version, it was larger than what we received on day one.
All
Oh,
right,
that's
well,
right. That it was one of the patch edits that they
And
did
I don't know what
change.
those numbers are, and like this isn't this actually could devolve into a early access versus day one versus patch, blah 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 blah. That's not
Because
where
of
I
the
want to
deeper
take it.
thing
all
of
right.
treating the player
Well,
That's
base
not
as a
where I want to take it,
well
but I
that
do
testing
just
was
want to put
that
that
area.
out
was
there
that was an
for
aside anyway.
yeah.
Um, if you like ran up against that and you were mad that you had to play the game more in order to play the game more, then what the fuck are you doing in this game?
Or a little too much on the instant gratification, I
I
guess.
don't I don't give two
But
shits if you're mad
Scorch,
about playing the game. Play the fucking
but
game.
Scorch, I work
Uh,
from 8 to 5. Then I come home. I'm a good
uh,
husband, so I cook dinner for my family instead of making my wife do it because she also had to work. And sometimes I like to give her a break. Then I took the kids to. Then I went. Then I took the kids to their. What season is this? Soccer,
mm.
baseball. Took him to his baseball practice. Took my daughter to pick my daughter up from ballet, and then I came back and I have 2 hours to play with my mates because I play with guys across the pond and then I play with guys on the West Coast.
Uh-huh.
So I want to spend my 2 hours playing the story because I'm a story person. I really want to advance the story. Go.
Mm-hmm. Play
And
Assassin's
now you're
Creed.
telling me that I can't progress the game. This is the only 2 hours that I have this week to play with my friends.
You
And we can't go past this moment.
you can still play the game. Like these are the people. All right, so the person that you just described, all right, exists
Doesn't exist.
plentifully, absolutely plentifully. They're all over the place. There's like six next door to me right now, and uh, they. I don't know if they would like pick this game to actually play. Would they? They'd be like, if you don't have that much time to dump into a game that's like this, you play Destiny, right? Because
Mm.
Mhm.
that's like
Quick instant gratification.
quick,
That's why COD is.
instant,
That's why
like,
COD is really successful. Like in a couple minutes, you can play a handful of matches. Like 30 minutes gets you like 2 or 3 matches,
yeah.
like that, like really
That's
fast.
really
It's fast
that's
paced.
not what this game is like catering to. You know what I mean?
Mm.
If you
Mhm.
picked up this game expecting like a quick,
Mm.
session or something like that, where you could like pick it up for like 20 minutes and get stuff done and then put it back, if you actually bought it for that, then you'd play it for about 10 minutes and move on. I don't think that you'd have any like huge kind of gripe or anything with
Commitments.
just putting it down forever if you had that
Okay.
kind of limited amount of time. As a matter
Hmm.
of fact, I think you'd be doing the game a disservice if you played it like that anyway.
At which point those people will get frustrated and quit playing it anyways.
Yep. Back to Black Ops 4 or whatever iteration Call of Duty's on now. Call of Duty, boy!
Oh man, they should absolutely put
So,
Kratos in a
what
Call of Duty
other
game.
critiques or improvements that we can see that we can?
Hmm.
What's our wish list for Anthem? Let's go there. What's our wish list?
Oh my god. Alright, I want more story with Owen.
They
I
seem like
Mhm.
they've set that up pretty well. I
I
Yeah.
think
mean,
they have.
flew off for another day in a super suit. Like, I'm pretty sure he's coming back. I would
I hope
assume.
so.
But
I
I hope so. He's a
want
the
really
way that
engaging
they
character.
smash the monitor right there at the end of the story, I'm kind of curious if they're like they rushed his story out of the way so they could like focus on what's now going to be DLC story for him. Like the monitor seemed like he started out really well. Like he's a really good villain, and then all of a sudden they belittled him to this little flake of a character that you kill off in a single mission and then you're done with him.
yeah. He didn't
You don't even
seem
have the typical like battle him a handful of times and then finally beat him in his final form or
he
whatever,
didn't
you know?
he wasn't antagonisty enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No.
He
Yeah,
was
Yeah,
a
I
really
agree.
weak like counterpoint to your
I loved his
character.
voice acting and I
Oh yeah,
liked his like
absolutely.
persona, but they didn't do anything with it. They literally just killed him off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was squandered potential. The monitor could have been a pretty
Because
compelling
he
villain.
seemed to have had a really interesting backstory, but you don't know what any of it is because you
Yeah.
freaking laid him out.
It was
I was hoping they would do.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
God damn it.
I was gonna say I was hoping they would also do something with the doctor who was with them or the scientist who was with
Yeah.
The
them.
bald
Like, where the
dude?
hell did he
Who
come
disappeared?
from?
Yeah.
Didn't he get fried when he first tried to use
Oh, he
the device
totally got pink
to
misted.
Yes.
yeah.
But what if he exists inside of some weird space
You mean
time
like
thing like the?
he had then become
The
fused with and
cenotaph?
is now a part of the Anthem and an all-knowing creation that still retains his individuality and his drive to enhance the Dominion and his ability to retain his individuality makes it so that he compels the monitor to come back to the Heart of Rage so that he can like make contact with the Dominion and tell them how to harness that energy.
Copyright
Okay.
DerNami 2019.
Okay, first of all, that is amazing. By word call us. Second of all, I feel like in some way you described Sephiroth. I feel like you did, or maybe just a little bit, But no, like that would be an amazing idea. That would just, I mean, it would just be another way for them to extend the life of the story because I
So,
feel like they
yeah.
really did build a really good world, and they have the start of a really good vehicle to tell these episodic stories within the Anthem universe. I'm just worried we're not going to get a chance to see it.
Yeah. So just FYI, BioWare, if you ever find this, I live in Austin. All right. I'm there. Okay. I don't even have a commute. All right.
Plug. End of
Just
plug.
saying, our rates are really cheap.
You know, be a part of your writing team. That would be perfectly fine with me. You
Oh
know.
man, I wish.
Anyways.
Wish.
All right, off the wishing train.
Yeah.
Oh, we're still on a wish train. Is there anything else that we wanted? We said no loot, reputation rewards, making the achievements more recognizable. Earlier, I mentioned like actual flying challenges or level design where the floor they had the floor is lava, but what if the floor isn't there and you have to navigate like a really narrow
Little
craggy
pillar landing
mountain.
spots.
Yes,
you
and
can
you can't
barely
go too
make.
high because the the turbulence will
Or
push
you
you
have,
down.
or
You can't go
carefully
too
placed
low.
waterfalls and areas where you have to like fly downward to cool while gaining distance, and then yeah, like a clever
Mhm.
flight path. You have to figure out a clever flight path.
That would be amazing. And think about how difficult it would be, and I know they're thinking about how difficult it would be because that's why it's not in the game, but how difficult it would be to have 4 people on that route. And then
Yeah.
plot a path, like 2 pathways that only a Colossus can get through, or he'd have to shoot through, or it's
Shield
like
bash
the
or something.
possibilities are there, and it'd be so much fun, and we need those type of I need those type of experiences in the game so I can fully realize my purpose of being a mecha pilot. Okay, I've been training for this all my life. This is the closest that I get to it. Give me the goods, BioWare. Give it to me.
I think that's about it. I don't really have anything else to add to that. I think we did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
I think we hit just about all the topics.
Yeah. And I
Listmaster, is there anything else?
No, I mean there's always something else, but we hit all of the things that we set out to.
Okay.
We gave hopefully our tens of 10 listeners some really good insight into Anthem. We're not the people who received a free copy of the game and then played
Nope.
it all day and got paid for it
yeah.
and then rushed out a review, or the people who waited until day one to actually give a review, like a measured idea. We're people who purchased it with our own money, uh, pre-ordered it with our own money, played it over the past week and a half,
Yeah.
So
and
I
got a
have a
really good feel of the
question
game.
What's your
for both of
question?
you. How, now that BioWare, as a company, has pushed out 2 games back to back, being Andromeda and Anthem, both of them having their historical share now of issues, would you say you would be still in the mode of pre-ordering whatever their next game might be? Or do you think you're in the boat of not pre-ordering their games for the time being,
Well, there's
out of
always
curiosity?
there's always a huge push to not pre-order anything anymore. And
Hmm.
I totally understand why.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I don't know how much of the industry is currently built off of pre-orders, so I can't say that one way or another that's going to change. As far as BioWare specifically, it's definitely going to have to be dependent on what they're releasing. I've been burned too many times at this point with new IP, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't, man, I'm hoping that BioWare doesn't release any new game for a very long time and that they work on and perfect what they currently have going right now because this is kind of a game that you can't just set aside. This is something that you
Mm-hmm.
want to have a life to. This is something that you need a really, really long tail on. And right now, you can't get to the tail because it literally doesn't work. What I want
Mm-hmm.
them to do, instead of like making a new game and pre-ordering, having everybody pre-order it and all of that, going back to Mass Effect, any of that, I want them to fix Anthem. That's it.
Mm,
Reasonable goal.
Yeah.
Reasonable goal.
yeah. Um, this is my second BioWare game. Uh, I
You really
really
had 2 misfires in a row then.
Yeah.
Well, so here's the thing with Mass Effect Andromeda. I didn't necessarily buy into the massive wave of complaints about the glitches and character modeling for that. Um, like they were an issue, but they to me that's not they
Mm-hmm.
weren't
Not
as
show-stopping.
They weren't show-stopping, and they weren't as egregious as like the Assassin's Creed ones,
Oh my god.
where people spawned
Oh
in
my
without a
God.
face. It was
Yeah,
just
that was
eyes and
creepy
cheeks.
as hell. Oh my gosh. That was some
Like,
Nightmare Factory stuff right there.
Yeah.
like for Mass Effect Andromeda, they lost me in the pacing and that gosh darn ice world. If I never see another ice world in a game, I will be so happy. And I say that when Monster Hunter is releasing an ice world expansion, and I'm considering it. but but so that didn't affect me with pre-ordering Anthem. If it weren't for the massive game breaking to my console console of choice technical difficulties, I would say I really want them to continue honing Anthem in the same way that some of the other games of a service, or even like what Final Fantasy 14 did to go from Final Fantasy 14 to Final Fantasy 14: A World Reborn. Like, there is something in Anthem that is really good, and it's so much fun to play,
Yeah.
and it's got so much possibility. I would recommend people play the game if it weren't technically broken for my console of choice.
Yeah.
My
Yes.
biggest fear for